Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. I'm Task Force Bourbon. Tonight we have something special in store. We're going to be doing the Old Fitzgerald 16 and 17 year Bottled in Bond blind flight fight. So as most of you all probably know, the 17 year was just released. You got it this year. Whereas we have the 16 year released not too long ago, back in 2020, I believe. Before we get that into the blind flight fight, I want to talk to you all real quick about Old Fitzgerald's brand lineage, as it were. So that starts back in 1870, where it was exclusively for passengers on steamships and railroads around the 1900 time frame. Old Fitz, as it was coined back then, was released to the American public and in Europe as well. During Prohibition, Old Fitz was one of a select few to distill under government supervision for the national medicinal trade. It was soon after acquired by Pappy Van Winkle for $10,000. I'm sure that equates to more nowadays. You guys go ahead and do the math for me. Who then introduced the, quote, whisper of wheat to the original recipe. Pappy produced it for years at the Stitzel-Weller distillery, though he refused to bottle it at anything less than a domestic requirement of 100 proof. Good man. Set out forth, as we all know, by the Bottled-in-Bond Act of 1897. So those of you unfamiliar with Bottled-in-Bond, essentially that came out of people getting their spirits adulterated back in the day, and it was a way to regulate quality in essence. So to be bottled in bond, you have to follow a few rules. Obviously, it has to be aged under government supervision, and it has to be aged no less than 4 years. So amongst a couple other things, it also, as you can see, that 4 years is not limited. So it can be all the way up to 17. And for Old Fitzgerald brand line, that's the oldest to date. But furthering on that Old Fitzgerald lineage, he is noted as advertising as saying it was silly for the consumer to be paying for water. If they wanted a lower proof, let them add water themselves. However, after his death, his son Julian Jr. reluctantly bowed to the pressure from the sales force that he was clamoring for a lower proof version of Old Fitz, and Prime was created as an 86 proof product. So Old Fitzgerald Prime is definitely something in the community that we refer to as a shelfer type bourbon, a very low end offering. And I believe I rated it somewhere around the 2.0 scale out of 5.0 rating system. So following the closure of the Stitzel-Weller distillery in 1992, the facility was purchased by Diageo and used for storage of its I.W. Harper, Bullet, and Blade and Bow bourbons. The Stitzel-Weller brands were sold off, and Heaven Hill acquired several of them, including Old Fitzgerald. Heaven Hill now produces the bourbon at their Bernheim distillery, reportedly using the same recipe as Stitzel-Weller did in years past. When Heaven Hill acquired the brand, they lowered the proof to 80 in Kentucky in order to stretch the supplies that they had purchased. Over the course of the last 5 to 6 years, Heaven released Larceny, a big fan favorite and one of mine, as a new flagship wheated label, and pulled Old Fitz Prime back to being sold in a very small and select number of states. That's not a terrible thing. They also discontinued the affordable bottled and bond version of it, and in the last few years, as of 2018, released these guys as a yearly luxury release offering. So we actually see it twice a year. First released, like I said, back in the spring of 2018, each spring and fall, a new edition of the Old Fitzgerald Bottled in Bond series is released. The Old Fitzgerald line is well known for its distilling pedigree, like we talked about before, with Pappy Van Winkle and the Whisper of Wheat. Now, in 1999, Heaven purchased that brand, like we talked about, and releases it no less than 8 years, because before 1958, 8 years was the maximum amount of time a bonded bourbon could be aged before the government called to collect taxes on the barrel. So Stitzel-Weller introduced an 8-year very old Fitzgerald as their top shelf bourbon. This decanter, as you see here, is inspired by an original 1950s Old Fitzgerald Diamond decanter. The packaging and series honor both the history of the Old Fitzgerald brand and the historic Bottled in Bond designation. The spring releases have a green label and the fall releases have a black label. Well, then what's this guy about? There's also a red label, which is a distillery-only release. All releases carry a tack strip, like we see here and here, stating the year and season the whiskey was distilled and bottled. A tack strip, in terms of traditional bottled and bond whiskeys, was a signature of transparency which disclosed when the liquid was produced and bottled. We have a quote here. For 82 years, Heaven Hill Distillery has nurtured and produced historic brands of quality and heritage, said Heaven Hill Distillery Master Distiller Denny Potter. It is an honor to join a famous line of distillers behind the Old Fitzgerald name and to continue to uphold the tradition of the brand through its Bottled-in-Bond designation, which dates back to the early 1900s. Well, that's it. That's all the history we got for you today for Old Fitzgerald. What's more important is that we dig into the tasting notes and compare and contrast these two awesome offerings. Spoiler alert, I rated them both 5.0. It's a perfect rating. So if you will, real quick, bear with me. My rating system's a little weird. 4.0s are really where I start recommending a bourbon to others. 4.5s are sometimes, in my opinion, better than 5s because they literally excite me. They're the songs I throw on my iPod, the ones I work out to, whereas 5s are like the Beethovens. I know they're probably better than Katy Perry, I Kissed a Girl, but I probably listen to Katy Perry, I Kissed a Girl probably more times than I have Beethoven. Maybe not the most proudest thing I have to say all evening, but that's probably true. So 5.0s are just perfectly crafted. They're maybe nuanced, but they're balanced. So we'll start with glass left on the left and glass 1 and glass 2 on the right, and we'll just talk a little bit about each. So without further ado, we'll dig in. Very light nose. Getting sort of like a honey apple deal going on, and we'll take our first sip. So that honey most certainly carries over to the open. But a spike of this aged, mature oak comes forward. I'm actually thinking about Elijah Craig 18 when I think about how the age tastes. This one's kind of creamy with some notes of cherry coming forward. But I actually get some, like I think cola on the back end. It's got that like little like a flat cola. I know it sounds not like a fantastic note, but it just adds a little bit of depth to it. It's kind of a touch spicy on the back too, because it's got some baking spice maybe, or maybe it's like white pepper perhaps. I think I'm going to chalk that up to like a white pepper or maybe a nutmeg, because it's got like a tinge of flavor on the end of it. But more of a nutmeg, perhaps. So let's go ahead and sample glass 2 here. Very similar noses. Let me do a compare and contrast. So the right glass number 2, is a bit sweeter. Maybe more caramel. But we'll find out here what it tastes like. That's the most important part. This one's richer. I'm getting like some brown sugar, nutmeg, some banana nut bread, some sweet nuts like a walnut maybe. But you know what? The age on this does not stick out like the glass 1. So glass 2, I think is probably a bit more flavorful. And if I'm guessing just by age, I'm going to guess that this is probably 17 and this is 16, just on the aged oak alone, because it's very evident that the age is not the first thing you notice or the second thing you notice, or really even the third thing. It's more of just like a subtle complexity. But the glass 1 most certainly provides that aged oak nose or taste. But man, this is sweeter. It's got some more flavors on it than I think the glass 1 does. It's there. It's definitely there, that aged oak, but it's subtle. It's a flash on the mid, but man, when it does flash, it's like a punch. But the glass 1 lasts a minute longer than on the terms of the age. Because let's be honest, if we're evaluating these against one another, what are we really evaluating? Because essentially, it's the same mash bill, same place, a couple years apart. In this way, literally a year apart in terms of age statements. They theoretically should be fairly similar to one another. Let's go once over again the two glasses, and then I'll pull my favorite against one another, because right now I think glass 2 is just a slap over. Glass 1's got more spice kick on the end. Both are fantastic. This feels maybe a touch lighter bodied, whereas while this is light bodied, if I have to say that it's more, I would say that this is light bodied, this is light medium bodied. I think I like the flavors on glass 2 better because there's a touch more of that sweetness. By no way, shape, or form do I mean it's actually sweet, but I think the sweetness added into what glass 1's going on, even though glass 1 stands out in terms of age, I think that lends to a balance that I just like a little bit better. It's a personal preference. I think either way, you're not going to go wrong. These are both fantastic bourbons. And if you like weeded bourbons, these are ones to definitely seek out. For the love of God, don't pay $1,000 for these things. Don't pay $1,000 for any bourbon. These both MSRP around $200 or so. I think this is like $220 or something like that at the distillery, whereas this was like $180, $190. Now we're seeing this on the secondary easily fetching $700 to $950. And I saw this, on the secondary going right around $850. So, it's all relative to your means, and so do what you will. But they're definitely worth the MSRP. So let's go ahead and do our reveal. We'll start from, I guess it doesn't matter because as soon as we flip one over, we're going to know there. So glass 1 was the 17. You can see there it is, which I don't even know why I need to show you this, because that means that the glass 2 was 16. So I still stand by. I think the 16 just had a little bit more of the sweetness that my palate preferred. Whereas 17, definitely the age was more evident, which makes sense now that we revealed the two cards. But they're both kind of on the same level. Like, this is not, they're both still 5.0s all day of the week. But if I have to choose between the two, surprisingly, because my palate's more inclined to choose age, I'm going to go 16 over 17. But if you've had one, if you had both, if you've had others, let me know how you feel. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and look forward to doing this in the future with y'all. But until then, cheers.